still don't see like no preservatives. Like there's always a catch.
Hi everyone, I'm Dominique, and welcome to Eat with Dominique, the podcast for women with gluten sensitivities, IBS, and other gut challenges who want to eat confidently and pain-free. Today, I'm chatting with Kaureen Randhawa, founder of Besto, the OG nut-free pesto. We dive into her allergy and gut health journey, how it inspired Besto, and the unexpected ways people are enjoying pesto, even on a pear. Yes, really. I can't wait for you to hear this. So, without further ado, grab a seat and let's eat with Dominique. I always kind of like to start with like how I first discovered the brand. And so for me, it was like my best friend, she's nut-free, I'm gluten-free. She told me about this amazing nut-free, gluten-free pesto. And obviously I was sold immediately. I guess going back a little bit, what problem were you trying to solve when you started Besto?
Yeah, so I was solving a problem that was a problem for me to begin with. So, growing up, I've had a nut allergy my entire life. Pesto was one of my favorite sauces. So, my mom would make for me growing up a nut-free pesto.
Mm.
So, it was a traditional Italian recipe, just minus the pine nuts. Um, that's eventually where I got the inspiration for Besto. So, when I moved away for college, I got really into my health and wellness. And that nut-free pesto my mom would always make for me was basically something I always craved while
Mm.
I was away. So when I was at the University of Florida, I was taking apple cider vinegar shots in the morning, spirulina, and it made me realize that on top of most store-bought pestos not being just nut free, they're typically not super clean
Mm.
label or have a very transparent ingredient list. They use seed oils, preservatives. So my homemade batch one day, I decided to do equal parts extra virgin olive oil with apple cider vinegar, preserve it naturally with the apple cider vinegar. And then I added equal parts basil and spinach.
Mhm.
Spinach typically isn't an ingredient in traditional pesto, but I just wanted extra greens. I wanted it more nutrient dense. So that's why I did that spin. And it eventually created this green, better for you sauce that tastes like pesto. But I think because of our clean, unconventional ingredients, the versatility is far beyond just pasta and pizza. So the problem Besto solved with something that was just a fix for me and my dietary restrictions, as well as my love for health and wellness, is a pesto that is allergy friendly, health focused with clean label ingredients, as well as tasting fresh and delicious.
Yeah, it does taste delicious. Um, when you, I guess, like you said, you grew up with a nut allergy, you were used to having to make it on your own. Was there a moment when you were like, okay, like not only is this a gap in the market, but I want to make it my own brand too?
Yeah. So when I left college, I was living in Austin, Texas for 2 years. I would still make my pesto. My roommate would eat it. And then I got a job in New York, moved there, and again, continued making my pesto.
Hmm.
So it was something I would make for myself personally. And then a lot of friends, when they would come over, they would try my pesto and they would always say, this is the best thing ever. I have one friend in particular, her fiance is in the food CPG world. And I went to her apartment one night. She called me and said, let's make homemade pizzas, but can you bring your pesto? I want to do that as the base instead of marinara. So
Hmm.
I brought on the subway to Sophia's apartment, just a jar of my homemade batch.
Right.
And I left a jar in her fridge. I didn't want to bring it back with me. And her fiance called me 5 days out of the blue. He came back from a work trip, found the pesto in the fridge, was putting it on everything.
Wow.
And with him being in the food industry, I think he's seen more with brands. I
Hmm.
was working in the fashion industry doing finance. So he called me and goes, I've seen many brands at expos, supplier meetings, etc. There is a gap with pesto, and
Mm.
I don't see a brand that Americans are loyal with. So
Mm.
he got my brain churning as the first light bulb moment. And then the
Mm-hmm.
second light bulb moment is with my co-founder, Rachel. She's one of my dear friends. We grew up together in Florida. She's in New York as well with a digital marketing agency called Roots.
Mm-hmm.
I was literally just laying on her couch, and she knows who Sophia and her fiance are. And I was like, I can't stop thinking about what Christian told me
Mm-hmm.
about I should do something with my pesto. More people want it than just me. This is a
Right.
problem for other people as well. So she kickstarted the Instagram,
Mm.
which we initially thought just close friends and family would follow. And what ended up happening, we just got an influx of DMs from moms all the way out in California
Wow.
saying, my son is anaphylactic. Do you ship outside of New York? So at the time, while I was working my corporate job, I was Amazon priming glass jars.
Mm.
I'd go to Trader Joe's. They knew me as the pesto girl. I would rate all their basil, garlic, just all the 9 ingredients I needed.
Mm-hmm.
So I was making it after work, and it was very labor inducive
Mm-hmm.
because the jars we make are 9 ounces. And
Mm.
actually, before we even went into, real production, I was actually making 12-ounce jars.
Wow.
So, the amount my blender could make, the amount I could store in the fridge, I would reply to any of the DMs of people that were at least New York and New Jersey
Right.
local. And I would schedule pickup times during my lunch break for the days of the week I went into the office. So
Wow.
my office was at Madison Square Park.
Mm-hmm.
So I would meet there in the park during my lunch break and distribute. And then the light bulb of, okay, do I turn this into a brand? Is it started getting into the hands of more strangers. Like
Mm.
initially I was selling to friends, friends of friends, but then those friends of friends had coworkers
Right.
or other friends where it really was becoming more like a business than
Mm-hmm.
just like, baking cookies type of.
Mm-hmm.
So then I realized, you have to get your licenses, you have to
Mm.
follow food safety protocol. I decided, this is the time. It was 2024, like the summer of July, where this was all me making it in my apartment,
Mm-hmm.
selling it at the park. And I'm like, I'm 26. This is the time to take these risks. I live in a city like New York where it's almost like telephone, word travels fast. And I think the notion of not doing anything was destroying me more than the comfort of my
Mm.
corporate job.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I find like coming up with a good idea is the hardest part. So
Right.
the fact that that was already there, it really was just now up to me to action it.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's also, like you said, like it's amazing to see like the network of people and like how it starts with your friends who like, believed in you and then like the way that they could share it with other people, I think is very, very cool.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So you talked a lot about like the clean label and everything. What would you say is like the one thing or maybe multiple things that also makes Besto so different from traditional pestos?
So Besto is very different. We've had some people say, this isn't pesto because you
Mm-hmm.
use apple cider vinegar and you use spinach. And, we've never labeled ourselves as a traditional pesto. We are
Mm-hmm.
known as an unconventional pesto.
Mm-hmm.
So I think our top differentiators is our unique ingredient list. We use things that aren't in a traditional pesto recipe, such as spinach, apple cider vinegar. We use red crushed chili flakes. Again, not normal for pesto.
Mm-hmm.
Secondly, is we don't go through a heat kill step. So
Mm-hmm.
most store-bought pestos, at least the shelf stable ones, go through a heat kill step. So what that is, during production, the jars of pesto that are made, they get heated and it basically zaps the pesto.
Mm-hmm.
The benefit is it can sit on a store shelf for a year or two
Right.
years. The con is it turns, the leaves dark brown.
Mm-hmm.
It dulls out the color. It depletes the nutrients, the
Mm-hmm.
freshness, and it basically kind of just dries it up, and it,
Right.
you know, when you open a shelf stable pesto, and if you look at the color, look at the consistency, it's not super silky, it's
Mm-hmm.
more thick and lumpy.
Mm-hmm.
um and so it's a matter of preference, you know. So for me, and what I've noticed with many people that, you know, are buying Besto now on the reg, is they would rather have a pesto that's fresh,
Mm-hmm.
is refrigerated, lasts 90 days. And I think there is a sense of pride, like with Besto, we're proud that it goes bad in 90 days. And we're
Right.
proud that it's so fresh, it needs to be refrigerated. And another key feature of us not doing the heat kill, but finding a way to preserve it
Mm-hmm.
naturally for 90 days is the use of the apple cider vinegar in combination with the refrigeration is how we preserve it naturally, almost like the way you would with kimchi or sauerkraut.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Apple cider vinegar is very acidic, and with the high ratio we put in, that essentially preserves it without the need of a heat kill step, citric acid, or other additives that, you know, go against the brand. And, you know, something, it's, I feel like with food it's very simple. Like if I wouldn't eat it, you know, I'm not going to put it out there for the public. Like this
Yeah.
is exactly what we made in my apartment for all these years. You know,
Yeah.
I didn't want to change it, and I had the opportunity. You know, so many people in the CPG industry were warning me, you know, it's going to be so much easier if you're shelf stable. Like, you don't have to worry about shelf life. You can move inventory like slower. And, you know, none of that piqued my interest, because that's currently what majority of store-bought pestos are doing, and it's not resonating. It's not, you know, having the success it is. So why would I do a recipe or a process that isn't resonating with the consumer?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that's something that's so amazing about companies like yours, about Besto, because it's like when you say it's healthier for you, it actually is. You know, it's not just like a tagline on like
Yeah,
the, you know, a part of marketing. It's really, you can see it with the ingredients and with the choices that you're making.
right. And one tablespoon of Besto is 60 calories,
Mm,
because we cut out much of the oil with the apple cider vinegar. And an average store-bought pesto, 1 tablespoon is typically approximately 115 to 120
wow.
calories. So,
Yeah.
you know, the ingredients do make a difference, even if it's slightly.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I know you talked a little bit about how like health and wellness were big things in your life even before Besto. What would you say your gut health journey was like before Besto existed?
Yeah. So in college, you know, that's my first freshman year was my first year living away from home. You know, at home I ate very healthy. My mom was always the type of parent where there was always a home cooked meal. You know, we would eat out very rarely. And if we did, it was because she was working late. And if anything, it would be, you know, Thai food from our local Thai restaurant, or
Hmm.
Greek. Like we wouldn't get a lot of chain processed food. But in my freshman year of college, just being young, you know, like crazy jam-packed schedule, late
Right.
nights. I noticed I was eating a lot of more mainstream fast food type
Hmm.
of
Hmm.
food, like just food that's not good for you.
Hmm.
And I mean, I did gain the freshman 15, and I also just noticed my energy levels. I felt sluggish. I didn't feel like the best version of myself. And even just, you know, when you go to the bathroom, when you pick up on your body cues a lot of signals where
Right.
you can see, you know, how am I being affected with what I'm putting into my body. Um, so my sophomore year, you know, I left my dorm. I was on off campus housing. So I had a kitchen, more room. You know, I didn't have to rely on my sorority's dining,
Mm.
um, you know, menu. So I started just making more meals at home, and even things like salad dressing. I
Hmm.
realized when I would grocery shop, you know, I used to buy like the Trader Joe's, you know, pre-made dressings, and I just still would read the ingredient list, and you still don't see like no preservatives. Like there's always a catch. And
Hmm.
I just noticed even the slight difference of making something at home, like
Right.
the impact it had on my body. So Besto was just a non-negotiable because it was something I would use as a salad dressing. I would put on my sourdough, eggs, and avocado toast. Like it was just so integral.
Right.
And you can feel in your body, in your workouts, with your mental like brain fog, clarity. I really am a firm believer, at least in my personal experience, like what I put in my body dictates my output as like a
Right.
person. So the power of cooking at home. So I think that's why Besto is fixing for so many people. Making pesto is very time consuming and expensive. To buy a
Mhm.
very good quality Parmesan, extra virgin olive oil is not cheap. Finding a place where you can buy this much basil, and
Right.
it's very time consuming. But I think Besto solves that problem where people can just right away know they're grabbing it and they don't have to question the ingredient list, the calories. They feel good of still cooking home cooked food, but saving a lot of time, energy, and money with a sauce that is as good as if they made it at home.
Yeah. Yeah. No, you're exactly right. And I also agree. Like, I feel like underrated thing that people don't talk about is like how what you eat impacts your energy levels, especially in
Right.
college. Cause like there's so many other factors, like you said, sleep and everything. But like, I really do think like what you eat is like, wait, why was I so tired? Like in that class
Right.
every time after lunch, like that kind of thing. You're exactly right.
Yeah. And I even know, like, Monday through Friday, during a work day, I can't, just the way I function, I can't eat a super heavy lunch because if I
Right.
eat a very heavy lunch, it's almost like a sleeping pill. I hit a
Yeah.
slot at like 3 o'clock. I
Right.
have to eat like something, I do a heavy breakfast, heavy dinner, but
Mm,
lunch for me, I just have to keep light. And I know many people kind of have the same opinion, so you again, yeah, you just have to do what works best for you and your energy levels.
yeah. Yeah, exactly. What would you say maybe is like the most misunderstood thing about being gluten-free, allergy-friendly in CPG?
I think many people think by having a clean ingredient list, by using super healthy products, that it can't taste good.
Hmm.
And I kind of think the simplicity of our ingredient list is what makes the product taste so good.
Right.
I've noticed all my favorite dishes, whether I've made it at home, had it at a restaurant, when you just use fresh, clean ingredients, it will taste good. It
Hmm.
starts to taste bad when you add too much. You start to go a bit unnatural. You start adding food dyes and just more processed ingredients. I think that's what ends up distorting the taste. I truly think, like, when you're making a salad, the best salad dressing is simply just lemon juice and olive oil and salt
Hmm.
and pepper. You don't really need to add all this stuff in to make a dressing taste good. It's almost like the notion less is more, and
Right.
Besto's only 9 ingredients. Keep it in the fridge.
Hmm.
We're not that's really the simplicity of the product.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, I agree. I think it's interesting how like when you actually start looking at the labels of things and you're like, not only can you not pronounce them, but you're like, wait a minute, is this actually like good for me? And you look into it, you're like, wait, this causes inflammation, this causes this and that. And
Right.
like that's why, like you said, like I'd rather have something that I know what the ingredients are, like keep it in the fridge. It tastes so good, it's gonna be gone in 90 days anyway. You know what I mean? Like I'd rather have that
Yeah,
than, the alternative.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So you touched on this a little bit earlier, but you started Besto in your New York City apartment, 506 square feet, like hand labeling jars, barely any counter space. What would you say like that early trial and error was like for you, and what did it teach you about entrepreneurship?
Yeah. So it's funny because we're entering year two. We launched December 1st, 2024, and it's now the middle of December. Um, Ignorance is bliss in business. I noticed my first year of business, I was just so with decision making so quick because I didn't know what I didn't know. I
Hmm.
don't come from a food business background. I'm not, I didn't go to culinary school. I don't know food distribution. I didn't work for a distributor ever. Like it was all so foreign to me, but I think that was a huge advantage because I think many people halt in their tracks
Hmm.
because you when you want to start something, you start researching. And when you start researching, you see how difficult it is, the hurdles, the knowledge gaps, the bridges you need to connect. And I think the benefit for me is I was just so naturally and still am passionate about Besto that all the semantics and logic with how do I build a brand? How do I get distribution? How do I get supply chain? I didn't even think about those things because I'm just so passionate about the product. I'm like, I'll figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
And, in my first year of business, I would make decisions like this. Now, with the year under my belt, I've learned so much. Like, I'm a bit slower because I know all the things that could go wrong or the things you'll have to change and pivot. And I know by the time it's year 4 and 5, I'll be even a slower decision maker because even more knowledge under a belt. And, I kind of wish I could go back to that year 1 where I was just so unknowledgeable.
Right.
It gives you this like decision making confidence that is honestly amazing. And I think anyone that has an idea, like, don't over research in the beginning because I think at least for me, it could give you paralysis because
Right.
it's almost like you won't want to do it when you know all the work that has to go in. So
Right.
if you just have passion, like just start.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I feel like any like great idea or like product or anything, it's like if you just, like you said, have a passion, I think that also sticks out because you're going to want to always find a way to solve the problem and be solution oriented. And then also just like having faith that like, okay, if I go towards it, somehow it'll all figure itself out. Like if I'm working hard,
Exactly.
following the steps, asking people for advice, but like, just moving ahead all the time, then I think it'll all work out.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. What about starting Besto was harder than expected and what was easier?
So, it ebbs and it flows. I feel like in business, like how you have high highs and low lows, I would say
Mm-hmm.
the journey is equally easy parts and hard parts. And, you know, just something I would say in terms of like, there's been nothing that's been overly hard. Like
Mm-hmm.
a lot of things, like you think of a task you need to do and you're like, oh my God, I don't even know where to start. But by the end of the week, you're done with it. But the
Mm-hmm.
thought of it is very daunting when
Mm-hmm.
you're not like an industry expert. But something I learned definitely in the first year and a half is, don't finalize a lot of things in the beginning. And what I
Mm-hmm.
mean by that is, for example, the labels on the jar, the labels we printed round 1 of production to
Mm-hmm.
what we ended up using for like round 6,
Mm-hmm.
completely different because there was certain verbiage we had to change.
Mm-hmm.
We got, our shelf life studies. Those results take a really long time to get back from the lab. So initially we were 70 days and then we were able to change to 90.
Mm-hmm.
So those labels needed to be changed.
Mm-hmm.
So like when ordering materials, supplies, packaging, just know like don't order a lot in the beginning. Keep quantities small because you are so evolutionary. You don't want to be stuck with a bunch of boxes and then you realize, wait, we're changing our slogan. And then
Right.
all those have to go to waste. Like, because in the first year, 2 years, you're also getting so much customer feedback, new
Mm-hmm.
ideation. You want to be able to incorporate that and I think the thing is being agile and adaptable.
Mm-hmm.
For people to think that right when they launch a brand, that's, the way it's going to grow for the
Right.
next 10 years. And that's going to be the imagery. And like, it's not, it's
Mm-hmm.
going to change. You're going to get customers that reach out to you, stores, like you might even come up with an idea.
Mm-hmm.
So, I would just say, with the highs and the lows, look at problems as almost like if this problem didn't happen, I wouldn't be able to make this better.
Right.
So that's how I look at the lows personally for things that are hard and challenging. I'm like, it's not hard, it's making it better, if that
Right.
makes sense.
Right. Right. And I guess that's even like how Besto came about, right? Like there was a problem and then you were able to come up with a solution that like helped people, but it only came about because something was missing.
Correct. Exactly.
Yeah. I know you talked about like you had the apple cider vinegar you added and different olive oil. What was that first version of Besto like? And then how is it different maybe than what we all enjoy today? If it is different.
So it's exactly the same.
Wow.
The ingredient list is the 9 whole food ingredients. So, um, I've always made Besto with extra virgin olive oil, never seed oils, apple cider vinegar, Parmesan, salt, pepper, red crushed chili flakes, basil, spinach, and that's how I made it in my apartment. And with my co-packer, he just makes it at scale.
Hmm.
Obviously, we buy the ingredients in bulk from a supplier now. I don't buy them at Trader Joe's.
Hmm.
But there's no differentiation of what I did with my homemade batches to
Wow.
what, it's just not made by me in a blender, and it's
Yeah.
made at a FDA co-packer now with, equipment that can make 2,000 jars.
Right.
So,
How did you
yeah.
know, I guess, when it was time to like scale? Like you said, like you had the initial amount with like the labels, and then you were like, okay, like we can have more jars and different size jars. Like, how did you know when it was time?
So we only have one product SKU. It's our 9 ounce glass jar. Um, I I just knew in my gut. That first round of production, we did 1,000 jars and we sold about half of them, but the other half, we only at the time had like 600 followers on Instagram, and did, in New York, some pop-ups, events, etc., where we would sell in person.
Hmm.
But there never is a right time,
Hmm.
like and as you grow a business, your customer base is always growing. Like
Hmm.
where we are month over month, it changes. So
Hmm.
for me, last December to just not launch because I'm not sure, we're only at
Right.
500 followers. It's like there never is a right time. You
Right.
have to start, because once you start, then it starts, word starts spreading, organic growth starts growing. There's never going to be a time unless, I think even a perfect example is, Kylie Jenner with her lip kits. Like,
Hmm.
people say like, oh, she just sold out, and it, she just got lucky and she's famous. It's like, well, she was also on TV exposing her whole life for 15 years,
Hmm.
so she grew a
Hmm.
base. So, you know, you either have to grow a base and then launch your product. But for me, I already felt it exponentially growing. I'm not famous, I'm not an influencer, but just with the community, the small but mighty community we're
Hmm.
building, I'm like, once we launch, it's only going to keep growing from
Hmm.
this point.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, exactly. And like you said, like there's something too about like starting with like whatever size community you have, but those people being really into it, because those people are going to be
exactly.
like the biggest advocates versus like maybe people who know about it, but like you might have 10,000 of this versus 1,000, but like if these people 1,000 are super passionate versus 10,000 like
Exactly.
lukewarm, then that's, the 1,000 is definitely going to be the most helpful.
100%. And I think nowadays too, like just with Instagram, TikTok, the internet, and even me, when I buy things that aren't even food related, a clothing brand, makeup, technology, etc., I'm really invested in the brand,
Hmm.
not just the product.
Hmm.
And I think there's a shift with food. I would say 20 years ago, like when our parents would grocery shop, it was really whatever was available on a grocery store shelf. I would say now, as food shoppers, we're more informed and educated than ever. And
Hmm.
people like buying a product where they feel connected and they feel like the brand is values what they value in food and the ethos. And for us, we're also allergy focused. So
Hmm.
people that have allergies, like it's not just being a pesto,
Hmm.
it's a lifestyle with
Right.
Besto. And I think that's another reason why we have such high repeat purchase rates. It's it's I don't even know how to explain it. It's creating it's just it's a lifestyle. It's not a pesto. Like
Yeah.
it's, you gift it, put it on charcuterie boards, use it on your Monday through Friday meals. Like it's not something to just eat to eat. It's a way to
Right.
live.
Right. Yeah. And I think to that point, like there's also almost like a trust you feel now with brands like yours, where it's like you have my right, like we have the same problem, right? So then I know like I can trust you when you say, oh, this is good for nut allergy or gluten allergy or whatever, because like you've experienced it. It's not like someone who's never experienced it and like might be more okay with making certain, caveats or things like that in the ingredients or anything.
Yeah, no, exactly. Exactly to your point.
Yeah. So something I find amazing about Besto is that like people, even if they don't have allergies, if they do have allergies, like everyone loves it. Was there anything that surprised you about the audience for Besto when it launched?
Yeah. So initially when we launched Besto, I just presumed our demographic would just be people with severe nut allergies and celiacs because
Mm-hmm.
we're also made in a nut and gluten-free facility. So, with allergy shoppers, once you find a product that you deem safe, instantly you keep repurchasing it because
Mm-hmm.
it's tested, it's tried and true. But what ended up resulting with that first production run and our next ones to follow is two other demographics emerged, which
Mm.
I was not really foreseeing. And I would say they're even more than the allergy
Mm.
community just because those numbers, those total addressable markets are just bigger groups.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so aside from the allergy shopper, the health and wellness community has been huge with Besto.
Mm-hmm.
So we've had so many health and wellness influencers, many men love Besto. I've noticed men are very simple cooks in their Monday through Friday routine. We've had gym guys, up tagging us in a story of a ground beef bowl with rice and broccoli and using whole food ingredients, cooking their post gym meal at home, but then being comfortable and trusting Besto as a sauce to drizzle on their ground beef
Right.
broccoli bowl. And it's easy for them and it's quick and it's delicious, and it's also a glass jar. It's 9 whole food ingredients.
Mm-hmm.
So they love it for just the health benefits. Incorporating Besto into their fitness plans, their meals. And aside from gym guys, just anyone that cares about health, wellness, they're in that bucket.
Right.
So the health and wellness community has been huge. And then separately is just the premium foodie. So
Mm-hmm.
there's people that don't have allergies, could really care less about what they eat. They've just been dedicated customers because they leave us reviews, they DM us. They're like, this is the best store-bought pesto I have tried. Like,
Right.
I can eat pesto with nuts in it. I don't care if there's seed oils in my pesto, but they just like the taste and
Yeah.
the freshness. And you can really, for fun, if you want, you can, get a shelf stable pesto, try it raw on a spoon, and then try Besto. I mean, it is a night and day difference. And that, demographic emerged of people that are just saying, like, pesto is a universally loved sauce. Why is there not one good brand on the market?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it's true. How do you want people to feel when they eat Besto?
I want people and something I think I wouldn't even say it's a feel, it's a reaction.
Mm-hmm.
When we sample at events, at expos, at farmers markets, every time people try Besto, it's always like, oh my God. Like it's always this like animated facial expression. I feel like that's something you just can't fake. Like, it's when you get the zing of the apple cider vinegar, the grit with the parmesan, the herbiness with the basil, like it is truly like an explosion in your mouth. And
Right.
exciting seeing people's brains churn. Like initially when they just sample it, they're like, oh my God, this would be good on steak. Wait, this would be good on eggs. This would be good on pasta. Like people just start like going 100 miles per hour. We had a
Right.
customer tag us a couple months ago. She would cut a pear and like
Oh, wow.
drizzle Besto on a pear. And I'm like, honestly, I've never seen it on fruit, but it works on everything.
Right.
So, yeah, that would be, I would say it's like the reactions are more priceless than even the words customers leave for us.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. Pear I would not have thought of, but like now I'm kind of curious.
Yeah, I was mind blown.
Yeah.
Our social media manager sent me it, and she's like, "This is like we got to remember this one. Like,
Right. That's
yeah.
funny. What would you say, like looking ahead, what excites you the most about the future of like gluten-free, gut-friendly eating and CPG?
Yeah, I think there's a big renaissance happening. I think we as shoppers are willing to research more, even pay a bit more if we know it's a good product we're putting
Right.
in our bodies. And also, I think the emergence of refrigerated products is going to skyrocket like crazy.
Hmm.
People don't want shelf-stable products with tons of preservatives. Um, and there are shelf stable products without preservatives, but I've noticed typically for those products, like another great example, and it's a brand I love, is like Grillo's pickles.
Hmm.
I could get a shelf stable jarred pickle, but I love Grillo's, like
Hmm.
the crunch, the brightness, how fresh it is, how crisp, like you can tell it's a fresh clean ingredient pickle.
Hmm.
And I think even coconut cold, taking the lead with yogurt in glass
Hmm.
and packing it with extra, bacteria that isn't typically found in traditional yogurts. I think it's just showing this renaissance where people are looking for these type of brands and people care about these brands and what they're putting in their bodies, what they're the groceries they're bringing home to their spouse, to their children. People care, and I think this is only the beginning. I feel like this is still so early. I think in another 5 to 7 years, I think the products we see on the grocery stores are going to be unrecognizable, and I do think there's going to be an extinction with old legacy brands.
Hmm.
Many people aren't loyal to these legacy brands that have been sold, in the 70s, 80s, 90s. They're not, the sell-through rates aren't the way they were before. And with how fast CPG grows, when people have their eyes on other new hot products on the market, they're not going to stick to those old outdated brands. So I think
Hmm.
grocery stores will start looking, really, really different in terms of the landscape.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. I'm excited to see that's I think those are very good predictions. So I'm excited to see it. And I think it's really exciting how, like you said, like I feel like culturally we're all becoming more invested in our health and wellness and like thinking about what we're eating and looking at the labels. So I think it's only going to benefit everyone.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah. If anyone's listening and they want to start their own food brand, what's like the one piece of advice that you would give them?
Oh, there's so much advice. I would say you regret not trying, but you never regret doing. And what I mean by that is there's many times you're going to try to do something and you're going to get a lot of no's or
Hmm.
things aren't going to go as planned. And you're never going to regret getting a no. You're never going to regret when you do something and it doesn't come out maybe that time the way you wanted because you did it.
Hmm.
I think the worst regret is when you just don't act on something and then you're always wondering.
Right.
For me, I would rather try, get the no, and be like, okay, I tried, I got my answer. Now let me think of, other avenues I need to go. You can still be proactive, but by just not trying out of fear, out of thinking you don't have the knowledge or the arsenal of information, that is going to keep you very behind. So try, and even because in business 50% of it will be a yay, 50% will be a nay. Like be okay with the nays, like
Hmm.
because you don't want to just wonder like, okay, I never did it, what could have happened,
Hmm.
type of thing.
Yeah. And kind of like you were saying earlier, like if you wait till everything's perfect, then like you're never going to try it.
How we're going to get done in business, something to like different than my corporate jobs. I feel like in corporate jobs, you're awaiting approvals, you have multiple revisions, what's presented has been reviewed 1,000 times. And especially in startup world, it's you know be thorough, be diligent, but it's also need for speed,
Mm-hmm.
get things out, move at the speed of business. And business is constant iteration.
Mm-hmm.
So be comfortable with it's not an imperfection, it's an improvement
Mm-hmm.
type of mindset.
Yeah. Yeah. And kind of like you were saying, like to look at any time there is like the 50% nay as like this is an opportunity to learn so the next one can be a yay. Like just always,
Exactly.
yeah.
I read my co-founder Rachel sent me this quote the other day on Instagram. It was like, if you knew you were 100 no's from a if you were 100 no's away from a yes,
Right.
you'd be so excited to get
Right.
those 100 no's at your face.
Right.
So that, with trying to get to Whole Foods and Sprouts, it's like, you do get those no's in the beginning, but like it's a matter of time till one of those converts to yes.
Right. Right. Yeah. It's like you just keep knocking at the door because eventually a door is going to open. That's just like,
Exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you ever think before you started Besto that you would be like an entrepreneur doing business?
Absolutely not, really, to be honest. I think I kind of take that answer back. I would say kind of.
Mm-hmm.
I In college, I did finance. I did my master's in international
Mm-hmm.
business. So I foresaw myself climbing the corporate ladder in my early 20s and 30s. And to me, business and being an entrepreneur, I thought would be later in life, in
Mm-hmm.
my 40s and 50s.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I think working corporate jobs, kind of seeing, just the way things are done,
Mm-hmm.
ceilings, the control. I genuinely despised it. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what motivates me in entrepreneurship is, you get way more problems, way more fire drills in entrepreneurship, but I like not being controlled.
Right.
Um, so to me, I would take that over any day, like over any day of my corporate job.
Yeah.
Um, but in terms of being an entrepreneur this young, it was definitely not, in my horizon. I just thought I would, be a financial analyst, be a financial manager, be a VP of finance for whatever the company was. Um, but I think, there is an advantage of being a younger
Mm-hmm.
because like I said, you don't know as much,
Mm-hmm.
which ignorance is bliss. You're more
Mm-hmm.
bold. Nothing scares you because you don't know what could all go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So I think being young in business is advantageous, and also a lot of people that do have wisdom, they love helping you and sharing their stories.
Mm-hmm.
So I think like that's a benefit of being like a young entrepreneur. And also, granted I'm not older yet, but I feel like your energy levels, your personal time and commitment, like
Mm-hmm.
having a business is a child. Even
Mm-hmm.
like there's never a time you're not going to check a message, an email, because it relates to you and your everyday. Like you and your business are completely intertwined. But
Mm-hmm.
I think just being young, I don't have a family or kids, in my 20s. So I can really put my heart and soul in versus when I'm 40 and 50, it's still doable.
Right.
Allison Ellsworth did an amazing job with Poppy, with a husband, a family, of kids in her later 30s and early 40s. But I mean, that is harder than as a 26, 27-year-old where my
Right.
only responsibility is myself. So I think that's, advantageous as well, starting a business when you're young.
Yeah. Yeah. And when did you know it was time for you to leave your corporate job?
So I got to the point where I was saying no to a lot of opportunity because I had to be in the office and, I had a finance role. So especially when it came to month end, I would be working about like 14-hour days, like
Mm-hmm.
even days when I'd leave the office, I'd have to log back on, be on the
Wow.
computer till midnight, meet these crazy turnarounds and deadlines. And at the time it was just me doing the supplier meetings, going to our co-packer, working an event in Brooklyn, and
Mm-hmm.
schlepping all my stuff from Manhattan and setting up a display. Like it was all me. So I had to start saying no to things because I wouldn't be able to leave the office till 6. And if the
Hmm.
event started at 5, but setup was at 4,
Right.
there was a lot I was saying no to. And I hit a point in October. So we launched December 2024. I think it was October where I spoke to my parents and they're entrepreneurial, so they were
Hmm.
very, very supportive. The idea of saying no to these opportunities was destroying me than the comfort of my paycheck. So
Hmm.
I'm like, corporate America is not going anywhere. If this all goes to bust, I live in New York. There's 1,000 finance jobs I can get. And if anything, now I have startup experience under my
Hmm.
belt. But um I I felt more risk and unhappiness staying in my corporate job than the uncertainty of starting a business. It's crazy how an uncertain business just started feeling safer than the shackles of my corporate job.
Right. Yeah. No, it's really true. And I feel like sometimes, to your point, it can be like, oh, like at least you have a paycheck, like what the next thing is, you get promoted in that way. But there's something
Yeah.
amazing about like having control over your destiny. Like even if it does, like you said, even if it doesn't work, it's on me. And if it works, then it's also on me, as opposed to like corporate, there's politics, there's this, like, so you're never really in control, even if you rise high.
And everything, you're following a trajectory that's really like this.
Yeah.
Whereas when you don't know the end, like you might end up here, or you might
Right.
like, I like that,
Yeah.
like, like where could I end up type
Yeah.
of, uncertainty.
Yeah.
Um, because there is comfort, knowing, okay, in 3 years I'll be promoted to this. I'll still be living in the city, but I think I'm very like high risk. I like being bold. I like being unconventional. So for me, just seeing each molded year kind of like, just the path. And I'm like, why is someone else making this path for me?
Right.
I want to have more control with it.
Yeah. Was there anyone, I know you said your parents supported you. Was there anyone who tried to talk you out of leaving your job?
Honestly, no one. I have one friend. Her big thing was, you're not going to have a 401k in healthcare. And I'm like, okay, I don't care. Like, that was like her one stickler. Like, you don't have a 401k. I'm like, okay, but like, you can't even like withdraw that till you're 65. Like, I don't even, I'm like, I want to be bold with my cash now because I
Right.
could get a big reward before 65. Like,
Right.
and then who cares about my
Right.
401k? You know?
Right.
So it's like, you don't always have to believe the predisposed notion of like what society puts out there. I have many friends like they didn't even, when they got their corporate jobs, like I remember I was investing into Roth IRA and I had a
Mm.
friend at the time starting a business and he's like, I'm right now using cash to like build a
Hmm.
business and that's why I'm not putting it into a Roth. And, you know, again, like everyone's needs are different. So you
Hmm.
can't follow the same blueprint everyone's doing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And it's also amazing too, like that your parents had that entrepreneurial background to like, I'm sure that also helps you feel confident as well in going in this path because you're like, okay, like they've done it. So I know at least like, being able to see that a little bit.
Yeah, and I also think just seeing, growing up, aside from my mom and dad, my aunts, my uncles, like my grandparents, all of them did business.
Hmm.
None of us were doctors or lawyers or, things of that nature. So I also just think the work ethic, like
Hmm.
being exposed to that, when I'd visit my grandfather, I'd always, if I was in the backseat of his car, I had to go with him to drop stuff at the bank or if he had a rental unit, we would clean it in between tenants. Like
Hmm.
the grit and energy they put in, and even on vacations, my parents, being self-employed, could take 2 weeks off with me and my sister to
Hmm.
travel and do something over summer break. But we knew if it was 9 o'clock at night or we're at a dinner table and, something hits with business like a fire drill, like my parents are going to answer the phone and walk outside and be on a phone call for 30 minutes. You don't have that luxury of, oh, it's Friday, let me shut my laptop and
Yeah.
not think of anything. It's like, no, like when you travel, when you're at an important event, like if duty calls, duty calls.
Right.
So
Right.
Seeing that grind and how they had to execute in business, like, you can't turn off. I think that's I think being exposed to that, like it's exposure therapy. See, I don't find that abnormal to
Right.
me, because it
Yeah.
was all I saw growing up.
Yeah. No, I agree. Like, I think my parents are both entrepreneurs as well. And I think like seeing the hustle. And then also my dad always jokes, he's like, sometimes I'm like, oh, do I want to send an email on like a weekend? Like I might be working, but I don't know if other people are working. And he's like, anyone who's really like about it is going to be like checking their email. Like it's not, you know what I
Exactly.
mean? But I'm like, okay.
Also, something too in business, which I love. I feel like in corporate America, you always get these perfect, grammatical emails with find you well. All my business emails are like, did you send PO? Doesn't even sign name. Like it is so, and I think it just shows you like there's so much fluff in corporate America and in
Hmm.
business. It's just like, did it receive? Like
Hmm.
it is so simple because it's
Right.
like we don't have time to like,
Yeah.
beat around the bush.
Yeah.
So,
No, it's
yeah.
true. And I mean, even to your point about like kind of seizing the moment now, and like you said, like my dad also likes to say, like, we have like China in our house, we like find China, and he'll always say, like, basically like, use the China now, kind of that idea of like what are you waiting for? Like what event are you
It's
waiting for like 20 years from
so
now to
true.
use it? And it's kind of the same as what you're saying with like, why not take the risk now?
So true. This is like just a separate quote that just came to my mind because my dad would say it growing up. I think it's a John Lennon quote. It's like, life happens when you're planning. And
Right.
that is like so true.
Yeah.
Like, you can plan for a business, but you're just letting time go by.
Yeah. Well, this has been a really great conversation. It's time for the rapid
Yeah.
fire already, but honestly, I feel like we could just keep talking, but I know you have to keep building Besto for us. So we can go into the rapid fire. First question, sweet or savory?
Savory 100%.
Go to gluten-free, gut-friendly snack.
So I'm personally not gluten free. So I don't like look specifically for gluten free
Right.
products, but if you're saying a healthy gut healthy like good snack, this is a beverage. I love kombucha. I
Mm,
love the gingerade synergy.
hmm. Nice. What's the food hill that you would die on?
Good culture is the best cottage cheese.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Food that instantly feels like home.
Indian food.
Most underrated food ingredient.
I would say garlic.
Mm.
Everything needs garlic.
What's the grocery store aisle that you linger in too long?
I would say the ethnic aisle where it's like, foods from all over the world.
So I always like to close with this question. So growing up, my dad always said about like food or people or life that things should be good to you, good for you, and good with you. When it comes to gluten-free, gut-friendly eating, what does this mean to you?
I would say, hmm, to me, it just means what you put in is what you get out. And for me, just eating clean, um, fresh food, I feel my best, I look my best, and I also like sharing that food with people I love. I don't like giving food that isn't fresh and not clean if I'm hosting people for dinner or having a supper club. So to me, it's spread all, good food and good products to your loved ones as well. Like, and always offer, when I host, I always offer, clean ingredients. I splurge, even if it costs me more. Like, I truly believe in the quality of what you put in for you, but also what you share with others.
Yeah, and kind of just like with Besto, like treating the customer like family, just like the way you treat your friends and family.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly. The customer is our family. They're our besties.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for talking with me, Kaureen. It was really amazing, like to learn about Besto and your journey, and to see like already a year under your belt. I'm excited to see the many more to come. Everyone, if you want to learn more about Besto, go to eatbesto.com and follow them on Instagram and TikTok at eatbesto.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for tuning in to Eat with Dominique. I had the best time chatting with Kaureen, and I hope you loved the conversation as much as I did. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe and share it with a fellow gluten-free, gut-friendly friend. And don't forget, snag 10% off your first Besto order at eatbesto.com. This podcast is all about actionable tips, trustworthy brands, and real strategies to make gluten-free, gut-friendly living easier, tastier, and pain-free. So remember, whether it's life or food, make sure it's always good to you, good for you, and good with you. I'll see you soon.